Welcome to Podcast Learn and Fun. Let's start today's journey of learning.
Sounds good.
Have you ever stopped and thought
Yeah.
what the world would be like without the color green? I mean, it would be a pretty bleak place, wouldn't it?
It really would, yeah.
I mean, green is the color of life, the color of plants,
Yeah.
and plants are really the foundation of most of the ecosystems on Earth.
Yeah.
And you know what makes plants so special?
Mm.
Well, it's their ability to do this incredible process called photosynthesis.
Like plants have figured out
Yeah.
how to harness the power of the sun,
Right.
turning sunlight into energy that they can use to grow and thrive.
It's like plants are little solar-powered factories.
Yeah.
They take in sunlight, carbon dioxide from the air,
Yeah.
and water,
Yeah.
and they use these ingredients to create their own food, a type of sugar called glucose.
Uh-huh.
And as a bonus, they release oxygen, which is essential for us and most other living things on Earth.
Yeah. Photosynthesis is a really complex process
All right.
with a lot of intricate steps, but you can think of it as
Mm.
having two main stages.
Okay.
The first stage is called the light-dependent reactions.
Okay.
And it's all about capturing that energy from sunlight.
And this happens inside the chloroplasts, right?
Yes.
Those tiny green organelles within plant cells?
Exactly.
Okay.
Within the chloroplast, there are these structures called thylakoid membranes,
Mm-hmm.
which are like stacks of flattened sacs.
Okay.
And they're packed with chlorophyll,
Yeah.
the pigment that gives plants their green color.
So the thylakoid membranes are where the light-dependent reactions take place.
Yeah.
What's happening there at the molecular level?
So when light strikes a chlorophyll molecule in the thylakoid membrane,
Yeah.
it energizes an electron, causing it to jump to a higher energy level.
Okay.
And this energized electron is then passed
Uh-huh.
from one molecule to the next in a chain reaction, kind of like a tiny relay race.
Oh,
This is called the electron transport chain.
What's the purpose of this electron transport chain? Where are those energized electrons going?
So as the electrons travel down the chain,
Yeah.
they release energy, and this energy is used to pump protons,
Okay.
which are positively charged hydrogen ions,
Uh-huh.
across the thylakoid membrane. This creates a difference in proton concentration,
Right.
with a higher concentration inside the thylakoid space than outside.
So it's like creating a type of battery,
Yeah,
storing potential energy in that difference in proton concentration.
that's a great analogy.
Okay.
And that potential energy
Yeah.
is used to power the production of ATP,
Right.
the cell's energy currency.
So those energized electrons are indirectly helping to create ATP.
Yes.
What else is happening during these light-dependent reactions?
Well, in addition to ATP, the light-dependent reactions also produce NADPH,
Okay.
another energy carrier molecule that's essential for the next stage of photosynthesis.
Okay, so to recap, the light-dependent reactions capture light energy, create a proton gradient that's used to generate ATP,
Yeah.
and also produce NADPH.
Yeah.
These are both crucial energy carriers
Exactly.
for the next stage of photosynthesis.
You got it. Act 1 is all about harnessing that power of sunlight
Yeah.
and converting it into chemical energy
Okay.
that can be used to power that sugar-making process.
It all sounds pretty complicated.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating to see how plants have evolved this intricate system
Right.
to capture and utilize light energy.
Yeah.
But before we move on to the sugar-making stage, can you tell me a little bit more about this thing called the reaction center?
Sure.
I know it's involved in capturing light energy, but how does it actually work?
So the reaction center is a specialized protein complex
Yeah.
found within the thylakoid membrane,
Okay.
and it's where the initial conversion of light energy into chemical energy takes place. It contains chlorophyll molecules that capture light energy,
Okay.
along with other molecules that help facilitate the process.
Mm.
Think of it as the heart of the photosystem,
Uh-huh.
where all the action begins.
Photosystem. Is
Yeah.
that different from the reaction center?
The reaction center is part of the photosystem.
Okay.
There are two types of photosystems
Okay.
involved in photosynthesis: photosystem 1 and photosystem 2.
Okay.
They both work together
Uh.
to capture light energy and drive the electron transport chain,
I'd say.
but they have slightly different roles.
Okay, so the reaction center is within the photosystem.
Yes.
And there are two types of photosystems.
Yeah.
What's the difference between photosystem 1 and photosystem 2?
Photosystem 2 is like the initiator.
Okay.
It's the one that absorbs light energy and uses it to split water molecules,
Okay.
a process called photolysis.
Okay.
This releases oxygen as a byproduct,
Right.
and it also generates those energized electrons that we talked about earlier,
Okay.
the ones that travel down the electron transport chain.
So photosystem 2 is all about splitting water. And getting those electrons flowing.
Exactly.
What about photosystem 1? What's its specialty?
Photosystem 1 also absorbs light energy.
Yeah.
But instead of splitting water,
Okay.
it uses its captured energy
Right.
to re-energize the electrons
Right.
that have traveled down the electron transport chain.
Right.
Remember how we talked about those electrons losing a bit of energy
Right.
as they move from one molecule to the next?
Yeah.
Well, photosystem 1 gives them a boost,
Right.
ensuring they have enough energy
Yeah.
to reduce NADP plus to NADPH.
So photosystem 1 is like a midway charging station for those electrons, making sure they have enough energy to help create NADPH.
Exactly. And remember, NADPH, along with ATP, are the key energy carriers that will be used in the next stage of photosynthesis to power the production of sugar.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get the big picture here.
Yeah.
Photosystem 2 captures light energy,
Right.
splits water, and gets those electrons flowing. Then photosystem 1 re-energizes those electrons.
Yes.
So they can help create NADPH.
Exactly.
And all of this is happening in the thylakoid membranes, creating a proton gradient that's used to generate ATP.
Yeah.
It's like a well-choreographed dance of molecules.
It is.
All powered by the energy of sunlight.
It's a remarkable process, isn't it?
It is.
And we haven't even touched on the intricacies of the second stage of photosynthesis, the Calvin cycle, where all those energy carriers, ATP and NADPH, are put to work in the grand finale of sugar synthesis.
That's where the real magic happens, right? Turning those raw ingredients and energy into something as complex and vital as sugar.
Exactly.
But maybe we should save that part of the story for the next episode.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I'm already looking forward to learning more about the sugar-making magic.
It's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And one that highlights the incredible ingenuity of nature. So last time we were talking about how plants capture light energy and convert it into chemical energy in the form of ATP and NADPH. And all that was happening in those thylakoid membranes within the chloroplasts.
Right. And now we're moving on to Act 2.
Yeah.
The Calvin cycle.
Exactly.
Which is where the sugar making actually happens.
That's right. The Calvin cycle takes place in the stroma.
Okay.
The fluid-filled space surrounding the thylakoid membranes.
So if the thylakoid membranes are like the bustling city where the energy is generated, the stroma is like the surrounding countryside where that energy is used to actually produce the food.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And the key ingredient in this food production process is carbon dioxide, which the plant takes in from the atmosphere.
So the plant is using carbon dioxide along with the energy from the ATP and NADPH to create sugar.
Precisely. The Calvin cycle is a series of chemical reactions that use carbon dioxide, ATP, and NADPH to produce a simple sugar called glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, or G3P.
And G3P can then be used to make glucose.
Exactly.
The plant's primary source of energy.
It's like G3P is a versatile building block that can be used to make all sorts of other molecules, including glucose, which is the plant's main source of energy.
Okay, so let's break down the Calvin cycle step by step. Where does it all begin?
The starting point is a molecule called ribulose 1005-bisphosphate, or RoBP. It's a 5-carbon sugar that acts like a foundation upon which the sugar molecule is built.
So RuBP is kind of like the starting material for the Calvin cycle. What happens next?
The next step is carbon fixation. This is where an enzyme called Rubisco comes into play.
Rubisco. Oh, I'm sensing a theme here with these complex names.
They can be a bit intimidating, but don't let the names fool you. These molecules are doing amazing things. Rubisco catalyzes the reaction between RuBP and carbon dioxide, helping to attach the carbon dioxide molecule to the RuBP molecule.
So Rubisco is kind of like the construction worker attaching the carbon dioxide building block
Perfect analogy.
to the RuBP foundation.
This creates a 6-carbon molecule, but it's very unstable and quickly breaks down into 2 3-carbon molecules called 3-phosphoglycerate, or 3-PGA.
So we go from 5 carbons to 6.
Yes.
Then back down to 3.
Right.
Why does it split?
It's all part of the intricate dance of chemical reactions that make up the Calvin cycle. And this is where those energy carriers we talked about earlier, ATP and NADPH, come into play. They provide the energy and electrons needed to convert 3 PGA into another 3-carbon molecule called glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, or G3P.
Wait a minute, G3P?
You got it.
That's the simple sugar you mentioned earlier that can be used to make glucose?
Some of the G3P is used to regenerate Ruby P, ensuring that the Calvin cycle can continue.
So it's like recycling some of the products to keep the production line running.
But the rest of the G3P is used to make glucose. The plant's primary source of energy, as you said.
Wow, so after all those steps,
we
finally get to the sugar.
We get to the sugar.
It's incredible to think about how much intricate chemistry is going on inside these tiny plant cells.
It truly is.
And it all starts with sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. Photosynthesis is an amazing process that underscores the ingenuity of nature.
It really makes you appreciate the power and complexity of the natural world.
But I'm curious, are there any factors that can affect the efficiency of photosynthesis? We just talked about how it's this finely tuned process with all these different steps.
You're right. It is a finely tuned process. And like any complex system, it can be affected by a variety of factors. Both internal and external to the plant.
Like what kind of factors?
Well, one of the most obvious factors is light intensity. As you might expect, the more light a plant receives, the higher the rate of photosynthesis up to a certain point.
That makes sense. More light means more energy to drive the process. But you said up to a certain point. What happens if a plant gets too much light?
That's a good point. Just like you can have too much of a good thing. Too much light can actually damage the photosynthetic machinery within the plant.
So it's like overloading the system.
Exactly.
And just like light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration also plays a role. Remember, carbon dioxide is one of the key ingredients in photosynthesis. The building block that gets attached to Ruby P. So as carbon dioxide concentration increases, the rate of photosynthesis also tends to increase. Again, up to a certain point.
That's right.
So more carbon dioxide generally means more photosynthesis, but there's a limit.
There is.
What about temperature? Does that affect photosynthesis?
Absolutely. Photosynthesis, like most chemical reactions, is affected by temperature. There's an optimal temperature range for photosynthesis. And if it gets too hot or too cold, the rate of photosynthesis will decline.
So it's like Goldilocks.
Exactly.
Not too hot, not too cold, just right.
Precisely. And then there are also internal factors that can affect photosynthesis, such as the availability of water and nutrients.
Of course. Plants need water to survive. And I know they need nutrients from the soil to grow. But how do those things affect photosynthesis specifically?
Well, water is a key ingredient in photosynthesis. Remember, it's the source of those electrons that travel down the electron transport chain. And it's also where the oxygen we breathe comes from. So if a plant is water stressed, it won't be able to carry out photosynthesis as efficiently. And as for nutrients, plants need a variety of them to build the proteins and pigments involved in photosynthesis.
So if a plant is lacking in certain nutrients, it won't be able to build the machinery needed for photosynthesis.
Precisely. For example, magnesium is a key component of chlorophyll. So a magnesium deficiency can lead to reduced chlorophyll production and lower rates of photosynthesis.
Wow. So there's a lot that goes into making sure photosynthesis runs smoothly.
It is.
It's like a delicate balancing act with all these different factors playing a role.
It really is. And it highlights just how amazing plants are. They've evolved this incredibly complex process to capture light energy and convert it into chemical energy, all while dealing with the ever-changing conditions of their environment.
You know, it's incredible how plants have figured out how to use sunlight to create their own food.
It's a remarkable process, and it's not just important for plants themselves.
It's essential for like pretty much all life on Earth.
Exactly. And we've talked about how photosynthesis provides the oxygen we breathe. And how it forms the base of the food chain. But its impact goes even further than that.
Oh, I bet. So how else does photosynthesis affect the planet and all of its inhabitants?
Well, for starters, it plays a critical role in regulating the Earth's climate by influencing the carbon cycle.
Right. Plants take in carbon dioxide during photosynthesis.
That's right. By absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, plants act as carbon sinks, removing this greenhouse gas from the air.
So it's like plants are helping to counteract climate change by absorbing some of the excess carbon dioxide we humans are releasing.
Precisely. And that carbon doesn't just disappear.
Right.
It becomes part of the plant's tissues.
Okay.
Its leaves, its stems, its roots, even the fruits and vegetables we eat.
So the carbon that was once floating around in the atmosphere is now locked up in the bodies of plants and the animals that eat them.
Exactly. And when those plants and animals die and decompose, some of that carbon is returned to the atmosphere, but some of it is stored in the soil, contributing to soil fertility.
So photosynthesis is like intimately connected to the carbon cycle, impacting everything from atmospheric carbon dioxide levels to soil health.
It's a vital process for maintaining the balance of our planet's ecosystems.
Absolutely. Now, I'm also kind of curious about how photosynthesis is connected to the water cycle.
That's a great question. So plants absorb water from the soil through their roots, and some of that water is used in photosynthesis.
Right. We learned that water is split during the light-dependent reactions, providing those electrons that are used to create ATP and NADPH.
Precisely. But plants also release water vapor into the atmosphere through a process called transpiration.
Transpiration? I don't think I've heard of that before.
It's essentially the evaporation of water from plant leaves.
As water evaporates from the leaves, it creates a slight negative pressure within the plant, which helps to draw more water up from the roots.
So it's like a natural pump powered by the sun.
That's a great way to think about it. And this transpiration process plays a significant role in the water cycle, contributing to cloud formation and precipitation.
Wow. So not only does photosynthesis provide us with oxygen and food, it also helps regulate our climate and plays a crucial role in the water cycle. It's amazing how this one process is so interconnected with all of these like vital Earth systems.
It truly is. Photosynthesis is a fundamental process that sustains life on our planet. And it's a testament to the power and beauty of the natural world.
Well, I've learned so much about photosynthesis today.
Good.
It's clear that this process is far more complex and important than I ever realized.
It's been my pleasure sharing this fascinating journey with you. Thank you for listening to Podcast Learn and Fun. If you like our videos, please subscribe, click the like button, comment, and share. See you next time.